Welcome to Cheater Masters. Let's dive into today's tale. It all kicked off with a phone call. It was just another typical Friday evening. I was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of spaghetti, when I got a call from my buddy Nate. "Hey, Evan, got a minute to talk?" Nate's voice had an uncertain edge to it, like he was holding something back. I pulled the phone closer. "Yeah, what's going on?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then he sighed deeply. "I ran into Maya today. She was with some guy. They didn't look like coworkers, if you know what I mean." I froze. My heart started pounding. "What do you mean? Where was this?" "At a coffee shop downtown," he replied, his tone still low. I wasn't going to say anything, but Evan, they were holding hands. I felt my stomach drop. Holding hands? Maya was supposed to be at work. "Maybe it's a misunderstanding," I muttered, trying to convince both Nate and myself. "I hope so," he said softly. "But I thought you should know." The call ended, and I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the pot of spaghetti. The steam from the boiling water seemed to cloud everything around me. Later that night, I decided to confront Maya. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "How was work today?" She was sprawled out on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone. "Busy. Same as always," she replied without looking up. I swallowed, trying to steady my nerves. "Did you go anywhere after work?" She glanced up at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Why do you ask?" "No reason," I answered quickly. "Just curious." She responded too quickly. "No." I came straight home. I studied her face, wondering if I should push further. But something about her tone stopped me. Instead, I said, "Okay," and walked back to the kitchen, feeling the weight of suspicion settling in. The next week, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Maya seemed distracted. She'd leave for work early, return late, and spend more time on her phone than ever. One evening, while we were sitting together and she scrolled through Instagram, I snapped. "Maya," I said, my voice heavy, "what's going on with you?" She looked up, her voice defensive. "What do you mean? You've been distant. Is there something you're not telling me?" She sighed and set her phone down. "Evan, you're being paranoid. I'm just stressed with work." "Stressed with work," I repeated, frustration rising. "So stressed that you're holding hands with another guy." Her face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" "Nate saw you," I said bluntly. "Downtown with some guy." Her lips parted, but no words came out. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "That's ridiculous." "Is it?" I said, my voice rising. "Because right now I don't know what to believe." She stood up, crossing her arms. "Evan, I don't need to defend myself against some random accusation. Nate probably saw someone else." But the way her eyes flicked to the side told me everything I needed to know. That weekend, Maya and I went to a party at Sarah and James' house. It was supposed to be a laid-back night, drinks, laughter, and a chance to unwind after a tense few weeks. But lately, it felt like tension followed us everywhere we went. When we arrived, Sarah greeted us with a big smile. "Maya, Evan, grab a drink and join us. We're about to get started." I poured myself a beer, keeping it light since I wasn't in the mood to drink much. Maya, on the other hand, poured herself a heavy glass of wine. By the time we made it to the patio, she was already on her second drink. "Maya, slow down," I whispered, leaning in close. She rolled her eyes, already looking flushed. "I'm fine, Evan. Relax for once." The party was in full swing, music blasting, people laughing, and drinks flowing. I tried to enjoy myself, chatting with some friends, but I couldn't stop glancing over at Maya. By her fifth glass of wine, her laughter had become loud and sluggish. "Let's play a game," someone shouted. "Truth or dare," Sarah suggested, a mischievous grin on her face. Everyone cheered, including Maya. "No way," I muttered under my breath. "Oh, come on, Evan. Maya urged, nudging me. It'll be fun, like the old days. I sighed, but eventually sat down in the circle with the others. The game started off easy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Everyone took turns either answering playful questions about past relationships or sharing embarrassing stories. Then it was Monk's turn. Truth or dare? James asked with a smirk. Truth, Monk slurred, leaning back against the couch, her giggle unsteady. James grinned mischievously. All right, what's one thing you'd change about Evan? The room fell silent for a brief moment, the question hanging heavily in the air. I straightened up, suddenly tense. Maya, I began, but she quickly cut me off. Oh, that's easy, she said, waving her hand dismissively, her laugh wobbling. I'd change his skills in bed. The circle erupted into nervous laughter, but I could feel my stomach drop. Maya wasn't finished. I mean, he tries, she continued, her words slurred, but it's just not enough. He doesn't satisfy me. She leaned forward as if to whisper something private, but her voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Honestly, I wish he was bigger. That would definitely help. The laughter died immediately. The room fell into a heavy silence. Everyone stared at me, the awkwardness suffocating. My face flushed with embarrassment. I wanted to vanish. Maya, I snapped, my voice low but filled with fury. That's enough, she giggled, oblivious to the impact of her words. What? It's the truth, isn't it? Without thinking, I stood up, yanking her arm. We're leaving. Now. Evan, come on. It was just a joke, she protested, stumbling as I pulled her to her feet. Say goodbye, I growled, not bothering to look at anyone else as I dragged her out the door and toward the car. She kept babbling, her laughter ringing out like nothing had happened. But I was numb, barely registering her words. When we got home, I slammed the car door and turned to face her. How could you say something like that? I demanded, my voice trembling with anger. She blinked at me, confused. What are you talking about? You humiliated me, Maya, I yelled, my hands shaking, in front of all our friends. How could you talk about our private life like that? Her expression shifted, and she crossed her arms, her tone cold. Oh, grow up, Evan. It's not that big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. I repeated, stunned. You just told everyone I'm not good enough for you. Well, maybe you're not, she shot back, her voice dripping with venom. I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. You know what, Maya? I've had enough. I'm done with your games, your lies, and your complete lack of respect for me. She rolled her eyes, but there was a slight falter in her voice. Evan, you're being dramatic. Get out of my face, Maya, I said coldly, turning away from her. Just leave me alone. She didn't say anything else. She staggered upstairs, still muttering under her breath. I heard her bedroom door slam, shut a few moments later. I stayed in the living room, sinking into the couch as the silence enveloped me. For the first time, I didn't follow her upstairs or wonder what she was doing. I just sat there, staring at nothing, trying to understand how we'd gotten here. Something between us had broken, and I knew deep down it wasn't something that could be fixed. Her words echoed in my head. He doesn't satisfy me. I wish he was bigger. Was that all I was to her now? A failure in bed? Someone she could openly ridicule in front of our friends? And then my thoughts went back to Nate's warning. I saw her downtown, Evan. She was with another guy, holding hands. At the time, I had tried to dismiss it, to believe that Nate was mistaken. But now, I couldn't shake the idea that maybe Maya had found someone else, someone who could give her what I couldn't. I didn't want to believe it, but the doubt started to gnaw at me, growing louder and louder until it was all I could think about. Eventually, I made my way upstairs. I paused outside our bedroom door. Inside, Maya was sprawled across the bed, fully clothed and already asleep, her soft snores filling the room. Her phone was lying carelessly on the nightstand next to her. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let it go. But the other part, the part that couldn't bear not knowing, took over. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand, my grip tight as I headed back downstairs. Sitting on the couch, I stared at the screen for a long moment, the weight of what I might uncover pressing down on me. Maya had never been particularly careful with her passwords. She always used her birthday. I opened her messaging app, and at first, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Work texts, group chats with her friends, and memes from Sarah. But as I scrolled further, a name I didn't recognize caught my attention, Adrian. I tapped the thread, and my stomach dropped. The messages spanned months, flirty exchanges, sweet nothings, plans to meet up. And as I scrolled down further, my heart sank. There were pictures, photos of them together, hugging, kissing, even lying in bed. Some were taken in a hotel room, while others were clearly from our own house. I kept scrolling, my breath growing shallow, unable to stop myself. Then came the videos. Intimate moments meant only for us, sacred and private, now exposed before my eyes. It wasn't just the act itself that cut deep. It was the fact that they had chosen to preserve it, to record it as though it were something worth boasting about. Each image, each frame, felt like a blow that I couldn't brace for. My mind spun as I tried to process what I was seeing. I wanted to stop, to throw the phone away, but something kept me glued to the screen, as if I needed to witness the full extent of her betrayal. Every second tore at me. My chest felt tight, and the room began to spin. As I watched Maya with Adrian, it became clear. This wasn't a fling. They had been together for 5 months. I sat there, numb, staring at the phone in my hands. With shaking hands, I forwarded the photos and videos to my own phone. I needed evidence. Not just for closure, but because I knew I couldn't confront her without knowing the full truth. Once the files were sent, I wiped our conversations from her device, ensuring there was no trace of what I had uncovered. Carefully, I placed her phone back on the nightstand where it had been, then left the room as quietly as I had entered. That night, I stayed in the living room, staring at the ceiling. My mind was a storm, anger, heartbreak, and disbelief swirling inside me. 5 months. She'd been lying to me for 5 months. Every shared laugh, every tender moment we had, now felt like a lie. My marriage was over, and I knew it. There was no going back from this. The next morning, I didn't wait for her to wake. I left the house early, driving straight to a lawyer's office. If this marriage was truly over, I needed to act quickly to protect myself. I laid out the situation, showing him the proof I had gathered. He nodded solemnly, assuring me that the divorce process could begin immediately. By the time I returned home, Maya was awake, acting as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. My heart was broken, but I had made up my mind. I wouldn't let her betrayal destroy me. She was in the kitchen, humming as she prepared breakfast, pretending like everything was normal. But I could feel the weight of everything crumbling around me. "Maya, we need to talk," I said, my voice tight. She paused, glancing over at me, her brow furrowing. "What about?" I took a deep breath, gathering the strength to say the words. "I know about Adrian." Her eyes widened, and for the first time in weeks, she looked truly caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, setting the spatula down. "Evan, don't start with me." Without hesitation, I pulled my phone from my pocket and showed her the photos and videos. Maya froze. Her face drained of color as she saw the intimate images of her with Adrian. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she stammered, trying to explain herself. "You didn't mean for this to happen?" I scoffed, the anger bubbling to the surface. "How could you not? For 5 months, Maya, you've been lying to me." Tears welled in her eyes. I was confused. I wasn't happy. I needed someone who would understand me. "So you needed someone to touch you?" I shot back, my voice sharp. And you even let him film it. This wasn't a mistake, Maya. It was a choice. Her face twisted with regret. I'm sorry. I wasn't satisfied. I needed more. I needed excitement again, she pleaded, her voice cracking. But I never wanted to hurt you. You did hurt me, Maya, I said, shaking my head. First, you humiliated me in front of our friends. Now this. I can't believe it. I'm sorry, Evan, she whispered, her voice full of guilt. I never meant for it to get this far. I'm done, Maya, I said coldly, my voice unwavering. I've already filed for divorce. It's over. Her eyes widened. You're serious? I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I turned away from her and started gathering my things. The finality of it hit me as I zipped up my bag. I wasn't staying in this house anymore. This house, once a home, was now a painful reminder of everything that had fallen apart. I left the house and checked into a hotel. Once settled in, I took a deep breath. I sent the photos and videos to our friends and family. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the truth. They deserved to know who she really was and what she had done. I couldn't keep the lie anymore. The reactions were mixed. Some reached out with sympathy, others were shocked, and a few even sided with Maya. But in the end, it didn't matter. I had done what I needed to do. The weight of the betrayal lifted, though the pain still lingered. Maya moved out shortly after. She didn't fight me for the house or anything else. She didn't try to hold on to anything, perhaps because she knew she had nothing left. The divorce was finalized, and I started to rebuild my life. I wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was clear. I would never let anyone treat me like that again. I wasn't broken. I was free. Thank you for watching.